this video is about explaining why do we have different methodologies. And here I'm going to get a little bit philosophical, or maybe very philosophical, because it's weird that when we try to understand something and or to study something, we have two choices. One is the scientific method, that is to do the same experiment all over again, and the other one is to analyze one case that it's very interesting, and then that can provide with knowledge. So uh, the answer to why do we have two methodologies is very philosophical. I'm going to go step by step on philosophy. I think this can be a whole course in a postgrad course, but because it's undergrad, I'm going to summarize it in 5 minutes. So first, we have the highest level on philosophy, which is ontology. Ontology aims to explain what is real. So is I don't know, is this bottle of water real or not? Ontology intends to answer to that question. So in ontologically, there are two stances. One is that everything exists and it just exists, like the universe exists and it just exists, and because it exists, it exists. I don't know if I'm going crazy, but the point is that uh, in one perspective, which is called the positivistic perspective, it's also the objective perspective. It only matters if there is something that has an space and a volume, and you can touch it, and then you can see it. If you can prove that it exists in that sense with your senses, then it exists. It doesn't matter if I die, this thing will still exist, right? So that is one point of ontology, the positivistic approach, that it's very objective. But on the other hand, we have the other perspective, the other stance, the stance that is socially constructed. For example, something that we can argue if it exists or not exists. This is when things turn weird. Is like uh, maybe my feelings are something that exists or not. If you think about the positivistic point of view, maybe feelings are just a chemical reaction, maybe something just like that. But from the other perspective, from this perspective of socially construction or psychological construction, this other subjective perspective is not only the chemical reaction, but it's about what triggers my emotions, what is my background, my psychological background on emotions, why am I happy at this moment, why I'm not sad. And in the positivistic perspective, I will only care about chemistry and hormones or something like that. But in the other perspective, in the subjective perspective, I will care about my emotions, but how or what makes me happy, why I am happy right now. And the other one will be, it's because this whatever hormone it is. So as you can see, it is this first level of philosophy already has this difference between something that is completely objective and something that is more subjective. Another example, and I think this example is very interesting, is when you have a table. From the positivistic perspective, a table is a table, and that's it. And how are you sure that it is a table? Where because it exists, right? That is a table. But from the other perspective, if I sit on the table, does the table stop being a table and then it becomes a chair? Or is it just a table that is being used as a chair? But from my perspective, maybe it's more a chair than a table. So understanding why I sit on the table instead of using the table to eat or that, it's relevant to the non-positivistic approach, the subjective approach. This approach is more about uh, the existence of the table. It's related to how you use the table and how you perceive the table. And on the other one, no. The other one is just like the table exists and there is a table. That as simple as that. Then the next level on philosophy it's epistemology. Epistemology is it tries to understand how can we prove that what we say is real, it's real. So how can I prove that the table is a table, or how can I prove that the table is a chair? So and in the epistemology, we also have the two stances. In one stance, we focus more about maybe volume or density, materials, things like that that are related to physics. And in the other one, maybe it's more about interaction, human interaction with the object, and it's more about design and marketing and these more social sciences. So as you can see, you are more or less now visualizing the differences between one or the other. Also, again, in emotions, the positivistic approach will be very clinical and will be very into chemistry, and they will do tests on my blood to find out why I'm happy or sad. And the other one will be more about my interaction with my family, with my girlfriend, with my friends, to find out what causes emotions. So you can see, it's not that one is correct or the other one is incorrect. I think in the end, we live in between these two worlds. Like my emotions, of course, are part of chemical reactions, but also part of relationships with other people. So it's not that I can ignore one. The same for the table. The table exists because I can touch it. It has there's some it it feels some volume in space. But at the same time, it depends on how I use the table that maybe it will give significance or meaning in my life. And finally, from these two steps, then it comes the methodology. So depending on how do you define the phenomenon that you want to study, it's the way in which you are going to study that phenomenon. So if you think that digital transformation in accounting, it's a matter of only technology, then you should go on the positivistic side. That means only objective data, like what are the changes on software, what are the investment of software that cause something, right? So it's very objective. If you define or digital transformation as plain technological change or monetary or financial change, then that's your side, this side. If you think that digital transformation has to do more with how individuals react to that transformation, how the organization changes about in that transformation, like maybe a restaurant that is using now delivery apps, if you focus more on how the organization transforms to adapt to this new system, then use this, right? The subjective matter. But if you want to understand, uh, I don't know, um, how where should you invest, for instance, if you should invest more in technology or maybe in training or maybe in consultancy, if you want to see what what investment gives you better results, then use the positivistic approach. So here I have a very interesting quote that from a paper that I was reading, and it says, I think it sounds really cool. It says, methodology is the terrain where it's a place where philosophy and action meet, and that's true. It comes from philosophy, but at the same time, it crashes with empirical data, the real life data. So I think methodology is very interesting because of that, because it's not only the data that I find in my life, but it's also justified by a deep philosophical discussion that I had with myself. So uh, I think I'm almost done with the video. I hope it's clear. I don't want you to confuse you or to, I don't know, make you crazy about these philosophical things. I want to show you that the methodology is not randomly chosen. The methodology is it's part of this discussion of what is the thing that I want to study, how I am going to study that thing, and then later on, which strategy will I use? And you have two options. And in the end, you can even have three options. Like you can mix things all around. Like you can do the statistical analysis. Maybe you have data of about 100 restaurants, and you have data of how much they invested on technology, how much they invested on training, and how much they invested on consultancy, and you have their outcome in sales. and then you can do an statistical analysis, and that's fine. And then you also say, I know that this is the statistical analysis, but I would also like to include a little bit of more data. So I interview some CEOs and CFOs from these restaurants to get their understanding of how they did this. Of course, mixed methods and mixed methodologies are the most challenging approach because you need to do a lot of things. Gather the empirical data, do the statistical analysis, then go and interview people and put that together. And that is quite difficult. That's why sometimes it's better just to choose one, or if you choose two, then you can do two research or two different investigations. So I hope that it's clear. I hope it helps you to choose your methodology, because that's the objective of this class, that you can choose your methodology and maybe your method. And I think I'm done with this video.